is inside of this, we will discuss the basic relationship of art. But before going on that one, sa basic relationship, let me tell you now what is the art appreciation one. So these are appreciating in different ways of presenting of the methods of the art subjects or artworks that we have, such as yung nandito sa atin meron tayo, realism, abstraction, symbolism, and many more. So to begin our discussion, as I said, we have the basic relationship in art. So the first one that we have is artist. We know that the artist who, right? It is referring to somebody or individual who created such an art form that we have right now. Okay? Subject matter is something that what is the subject that being presented in the art forms that we have. Okay? It could be an animal, a scenery, an object, a thing, etc. An audience something with somebody that are looking on you. You are somebody that is assessing your work, somebody who catch your attention from your work that you done when it comes to art. That is why. And the form that is created, it is how because your technique, your medium, your different ways of making up an art not to be created. So let's go with the another parts. So to wrote and to describe more what is art is, it is a person again who exhibit exceptional skills, like talent that we have, and an artisan one. Next, it is more sensitive and more creative because he accompanying art can convey meaning such as feelings, emotion, real or imaginary one. Next, artist is possessing something unusual degree for interpreting ideas in artistic form through the use of words, pigment, stone, notes, or any other materials that is available in our resources in our surroundings. So, in possessing of kind of arts, these are some of the skills and talents. That's why unusual degree. Everyone can have this kind of unusual degree for you to be able to get or to make an art form. So it may be you may are using an artistic form through the use of words because you are more in the literary arts. Maybe in the use of brush and paint, because you are a painter. Maybe you are an carving because you are in sculpture. Maybe you are a dancer because you are using your bodily movement or kinesthetic one. Next, artist is referring to who created it, as what I mentioned from the first slide that we have. So, who is the author? Who is the painter? Who is the creator of this one? No? There are two kinds of artists: the one who create and the one who perform on the act of an art forms that we have. So next, we have the influence and effect to the work of artists. So ano nga ba yung mga pwedeng maka-apekto at maka-impluwensya sa isang artist, katulad ninyo o katulad natin? So first one is style. Everyone has his own style, like per se, or for example, yung singing style natin, merong iba't ibang genre, may pop, may rock, may balladeer, right? So these are some examples. Style is also another idea or concept that everyone can imitate and can also copy from somebody or individual that you want to be portrayed or something that you want to be because this is your idol, this is your a great icon, so and etc. So you have many idea of having an style for you to influence and to affect the work of an artist. Okay, next what do we have is historical. Everyone has its own story. Everyone has its own background of life, and historical it's something to that will affect to convey meaning of our own sense of making of art forms by doing and influencing ourselves from our culture that we preserve, the static value that we have, and other information that we can get from our historical background. Next is the geographical. When we say geographical, it is referring to some degree of to where do we are located, from where we are placed. No? So these are the placement wherein people are living, or they are being uh, uh, with some aspect of territory. No? So geographical, we are a form of different regions. We are forms of the different parts of the world. No, but specifically in the Philippines, how we influence ourselves, no? Like in the northern Luzon, like in the southern Luzon, what type of arts do we have in certain particular, no? Or these places, no? So, iba ang arts that we have that we can be found in northern and southern and even yung ating other parts of the region of the world. And what do we have more is yung political. Political is somebody that we awaken of that we are belong or a part of, and the one we consider that is a thing that we follow or a guide or as a rule that we have. Psychological, it's something to do with our personal perspective, how we think, how we act, and how we mind everything in ourselves. Because psychological, it's the one who possesses. No, I the one that that describe on your personality. Psychologically speaking, your types of behavior is something with showing and a kind of what the kind of behavior is this. No, if you are introvert, extrovert, or a combination of that, maybe an ambivert, and etc. So that are the things that influence our work. No, when it comes to the art forms that we have. So we have sociological. It is also referring from geographical, and how is it being uh, different with the geographical one? Since geographical something to do with where we located, no, or the regions that we found, no, ourselves, or with where do we belong, no, our cultures, no, our ancestors. But in sociological, it is more on the study of society in sociology. So how is it formed, the culture that being embedded in a certain value that we have that we protect, and also that we cultivate, no, and until now we preserve the such of that we uh, do in our certain place that we belong. And next is the religious, or what we call religion. Actually, it can be affect or influence ourselves. Look at now our religion. The dominant one is the Roman Catholicism. More of our biblical characters are based on our religions that we have. These are the things that we can be found in many places in the Philippines. So, like, what do we have in the churches? Like do we have in the different, no, buildings? There are some religious, and some of them are inspired with this kind of biblical characters, no, because of their religions or our religions nowadays. And also for the last one is the technological. We all know, no, in this time of modern days, or modern world, everyone knows what are the impacts, the use, no, the things that could help for us, no, the use of technology. And technological has a big impact for everyone to create things by using mechanical products. And what they make no influence and affect the artists. It is because of what they have no available resources in making them their arts right now, from the past, and many more. No? So what next is subject matter. As like what I described earlier ago, this could be no a person, an object, or scene or event, or maybe an activities of man, like what has depicting on the picture or in the painting of Fernando Amorsolo. Some are maybe in interesting individual or person like Mona Lisa that made by Da Vinci. And some are maybe a work from a human form like yung ating Venus de Milo at saka yung David ni Michelangelo's, and many more, no, as you perceive, no, and as you create an art form. So we have many as an example. First, the subject matter. So it answered the question, what is it all about? Is it a human beings? Is it an individuals? Is it a scene or event? And many more na pwede nating i-include on that topic. Next is, there is a two types of according to subject matter. For you to be able to understand what is a subject matter again, these are the following. Can be person, can be matter, thing, object, place, scene, scenery, nature, and other interesting subject matter similar with that. So for you to be able to present your subject matter in making of your art forms. So for example, gagawa kayo ng painting. Anong gusto nyong art forms? Representational ba? O yung tinatawag na objective? So through making use of objective art or representational, you will depicting or representing an objects that are commonly recognized by most of people. Big sabihin, these are obvious pictures figures, or forms that can be easily understood or to depict the meaning of it. So for example, yung mga picture na gusto nyo ipakita, malinaw, hindi malabo. Meaning to say, yung picture na ipinapakita ninyo, hindi corrupted, dapat siya maayos na pagkaka-display. So, hindi siya abstract. As like what do we have for the next one, which is the number two type of subject matter. So this is non-objective or non-representational. Because non-representational, it is something that refers to the outside of anything that itself without representation. There is no an exact picture, there's no exact image or form that we can create through presenting of a non-objective art. And it is also described as an non-recognizable or does not have recognized any image because it is a abstract in the sense that it does not represent any real objects or anything in the world. It uses no as a content and concern with the how the work is depicted because on abstract it's only conveying a meaning of something of our expression, our idea of how we use our emotion and feelings, and the way how we created the art. There is no such direction or form or any object that we can create. These are some of the sources of the subject matter that we can be an example of. It's like what I said, nature or scenery. This could be a landscape of a natures. So if you are adventurous, it is something at scenery that did happen in your adventure or in your place that you were go or you visited before. This could be an animals. This could be a history that from the past decades, from the past history of something. And it is from your ancestors and many more. Religion that we have many times we have many examples of our traditions, our many practices like fiesta, caracol. We have many yung Semana Santa, Sinakulo. These are some of the sources of the subject matter that could be depicted in your representational art. Mythology, folklore, and legend. Our country has a lot of this kind of idea. We are wealthy of different mythology. Yung mga myths, yung alamat, mga kwentong bayan, these are the types of that could be an example of our subject matter. In the everyday life or genre, these are the daily chances, are the things that been happen in our lives. These are the usual, no? These are not the extraordinary, but these are the ordinary things that we have in our life or genre in our days. Excuse me for sino ba tong student na to na merong disturbed sound?
Si Marwin po.
Can you make turn off yung
Sorry po.
microphone? Kasi naka full screen ako para hindi na ako bumalik. So to continue our next topic, we have methods of presenting of an art subject. So as like what I mentioned, it is all about presenting and methods of how we present our subject matter through the use of these methods. So number one, under of this now we have realism. So from the word itself, realism, it's an attempt to portray the subject as it is. So as a realist painter, we will be trying to be as objective as possible. Meaning to say, you are expressing your image, your shape, your pictures in a ways of portraying a reality or realistic formal way. So, meaning you will be creating a some picture that is really happening or could be something that looks like that is something uh, copy of a original image. So yan, yung mga picture na meron kayo could be a realism type of art when we use photography. Next, what do we have more is undistorted personal bias because realism, he believed that the ideology of objective reality and revolted against exaggerated emotionalism. So, meaning to say, he did not even accompany or conveying any exaggerated emotion as to portray his object or when he created picture or form or shape inside of this subject matter. Next, this is an example of realism. How is it look like before no, yung ating picture through using painting. Okay? Next, we have abstraction. The abstraction is the total opposite of the realism. As like what I said, yung abstraction natin is an etymological came from the word no Latin abstractus because their meaning is it is mean drawn away. If we say that it is drawn away, then therefore we move away or we separate from ourselves from the no nature that we have which is reality and the one that we have that represent an object a reality. So, meaning to say, it is an only a feelings and idea that being created through abstraction way presentation. So, we have more. It is the totally, as I mentioned, the opposite of realism. And when we say abstract art, it is does not involve any show of subject at all as an objective reality as I explained to you, no? And this feeling are having an accompanying about an exaggerated emotionalism. So that's why you cannot predict, no, that the image are being shown to understand well and better yung image na kine-create. So, ang abstraction, minsan kasi, create ka na ng create for you to be able to understand yung isang bagay is you have a need, no, an analysis. You have to form no, your great deep meaning of showing the kind of art that being presented on your front, no? So, for you to be able to understand better the picture of it. And there are 5 examples of the abstraction of presentation. But going on that one, dito muna tayo sa picture na to. So this is an example of abstraction or in depicting an image that on my own analysis, it is something and a picture that depicting of an horseshoe, an horse legs, or whatsoever no, by the work of an artist. So it's up to you how you analyze. An abstraction is something that a thing that you cannot be easily understood his meaning or ideas as he represents. The first one that we have in the forms of abstraction is distortion. When we say distortion, it is manifesting of a subject is misshapen or condition are not into regular shape and it is being twisted. So meaning to say, in the normal looks of a picture, di mo siya makikita ng ganon. This is distorted because the picture is, sabi ko nga kanina, hindi kanya bibigyan ng correct orientation of the picture that you are looking up, and you have to need to analyze first before you get no the entire meaning of this image. So that's why it is being distorted. No, it is not being represented in a good or a normal way as he represent a picture. So there are something that is twisted out in the picture of the art that is represented no, on the picture or in the subject matter. So next is an example of a picture where we can show no there is a distortion of an image of. So at first sight, parang nakikita nyo, parang hindi naman ganyan yung subject matter na ganyan dapat yung itsura o yung looks o yung haba ng kanyang mga parts of the body and the way no how he show his own image o yung person that individual no present on the subject matter. So there is something that is regular shape na is being twisted. The next, there is another type which is elongation. And what is elongation? It is lengthened, that which is a protraction or an extension of something. So when we say an lengthened and a protraction or extension, it is being uh, making of a misshapen din. So, instead na ang image are correctly perceived into a regular image, ito ay magiging masyadong mahaba kasi lengthen yung protraction na ginawa natin, maybe in a circular one or another one, are being extended. Okay, kasi extension. Next, what do we have is mangling. We know that the mangling is something that is not commonly used, but this one is a form of the subject which shows cut, lacerated, mutilated, torn, or hacked or disfigured. So it will be easy for you to define or understood this one by showing you no an example of alam niyo yung sa mga tuwing November 1, yung mga holiday season ng uh, uh, horror. So, yung mga pictures or yung mga itsura ng artworks nun are disfigured, right? So, yung mga mukha, nanaagnas, some are lacerated or cut, putol, mga manananggal, aswang, putol na kamay, etc. And many more as to have when we are presenting up an art and even in the images of the art that we have representing an art forms. What do we have more is the Cubism. So, from the word itself, Cubism, it is something that inspired with geometric shapes and showing multiple viewpoints. These are cubist pictures na pwede natin makita. Okay? So, as you give an example of that, ito po siya. Cubist, more on geometric shape, like yung pwedeng gawin natin cone, cylinder, sphere, square, line that we have that forms a shape, no? Next is abstract expressionism. When you say abstract expressionism, it is something that's showing feelings of painting gesturally, non-geometrically. So, yung bagay yun, it is very showing in a manner of having a strong color and at the same time to show your feelings and emotions no, through the use of these ways of presenting of an art or subject matter. Next, what do we have more is the example. So these are the strong colors or the abstract expressionism that does not convey any meaning of the strokes that does not give no any quality into making into arrangement or composition of a quality, a kinds of subject matter to portray a representational subject art. Next, we have symbolism. Symbolism, it is a visible sign, something that is invisible, such an idea or quality. To give you an idea of this, what do we have is yung kay Spolarium o yung kay Wando ng painting. That is a symbolism. That is an idea of how the Spaniards are abused as Filipinos during their reign or their colonization in the Philippines. One more thing, there is an example of during the EDSA revolution, we have this one that been dedicated and created for us to portray no, our democracy and meaning of the life before. So we know that in political ano natin, time, so we started from the different leaders that are not good to us and they being elected in the office in the highest position that for us no, that will be helped not in doing our life make it better and many more. Next is Fauvism. When we say Fauvism, it is a form of art pa din, but this Fauvism, it is usually using of extremely colors or some of the bright colors. So most of these artists no, in Fauvism are trying to paint pictures of comfort, joy, and pleasure. So you will see in the extreme and the bright colors, no, yung use of the comfort and joy and pleasure of the bright one intensify colors, no? Let's say yung red and yung purple that you want to make it no, in a color of something to become joy and pleasure. Kasi pag faded, di ba? That is a sad, this is a non accompanying any kinds of any meaning, lose yung kanyang personality, and many more as to perceive the colors that we have. So that's an example of an aphorism. How is it being attracted to our eyes to give us pictures of comfort, joy, and pleasure. Next is the Dadaism. When we say Dadaism, that is nonsensical way as to perceive the object as he made by an artist. Because the picture of Dadaism, it's an art that is playful and highly experimental. So for you to have an idea, this is an example of an object of an Dadaism one. So that is a urinal one of a male wherein we can see no, ginamit yung other way or uh, orientation niya to make us not realized and identify easily the picture that's showing on us or in front of us no when we say and presenting Dadaism. Next is futurism. From the word futurism, the futurists are making of a work of modern, no, modern or making creating into much more high and advanced technology. Like what do we have? This one. So like yung pinaplano ng Nokia. Gusto niya magtayo ng tower or cell tower sa Mars in the near future for those who will migrate to that planet. Next, surrealism. A surrealism is what do we call a next revolution that happened no during that period of the 1924. But at this point yung 1924 na yun ay merong mga surrealism technique na ang purpose ng art na to is to make a weapon against the evils and restriction that the scene of our society before. So, this is revealing a new and higher reality than that of our daily life. So, dito na papasok yung mga surrealism technique natin, which are the veristic, automatism, sample. So, because it include na yung physical, yung psychology ni Sigmund Freud. So, let us try to look no, the meaning of this following idea. So we have the idea, the unconscious, that the provinces of the mind in general psychology. You have the conscious, the unconscious, and the subconscious mind, right? And then we have the different parts, the id, ego, and superego. No? These are the answers, no? In depicting of the image in the inner mind. That's why yung mga unconscious or the slip of the tongue of our mind na tinatawag. So in the first one, we have veristic surrealism, allowing the image na try to explain no, yung mga subconscious one by making and understanding them no, through analysis no, na ginawa. So from that, makikita natin no, yung mga sinabi ni President Duterte from the past interview na sinagot din naman ng ating ng si Harry Roque about dun sa slip of the tongue na mga nadudula sila sa mga iba nilang sinasabi, hindi sila nagkakaroon ng same answer which make them conflict not to each other. And that is the analysis how it tried to figure out the letters and the words that being telling by these following people. And in making up an art, you're trying to portray and analyzing some picture of until you try until you get the real meaning of this one from the arts that you are making up. And the opposite of veristic surrealism is automatism. Why? It is because the image of the subconscious that you're trying to portray I should not be going to burden and giving meaning of. So meaning to say, you will not be going to analyze, you'll not be going to give any idea, no, tong art na to ng abstract form. Filipino style na kasi tayo eh. Pag may nasabi kang kakaiba, yan, tuloy-tuloy ka ng aasarin hanggang sa wala ka namang maaamin pero kinukulit ka nila no, doon sa sample na meron tayo. Pero for some, pag sinabi ng mga tao, no, okay, di wala, sabi mo, it doesn't represent any meaning or doesn't have any idea of kind of accompanying no, another meaning no, or use itong bagay na to. Next, so yun yung meron tayo sa automatism natin, sa veristic, wherein we can look at no, the picture of it, no? We can see ourselves, no? You're trying to, sino kaya tong taong to? Are you trying to analyze? You're trying to meet your expectation? You're trying to want to get no, the real meaning of this one. And then these are the automatism one where we're not going to interpret and try to look, no, yung ating picture na ano bang makita natin. So there's no such accompanying many meaning or any idea of this picture like automatism like what mentioned. Ito rin, yung mga undistorted one nating image, di ba? So, ang gulo-gulo nung panaginip mo, yung mga bagay na iisip mo into your subconscious mind, that will be how you interpret yourself into trying to perceive the picture of it. So, some are techniques in surrealistic. So, number one, scale. So, very obvious na yung scale kasi when you say scale, it is referring to a relative of the size of an image or a shape, no? These are maybe no an object of changing from the ordinary to extraordinary size. No? Next, we have levitation. From levitation, levitation is something to do with floating and objects, di ba? These floating objects are maybe an examples of stone floating. These are the not normally and these are the extraordinary thing that will be happen in your making of surrealistic techniques. Next is this juxtaposition. And what is juxtaposition? It is joining two image when it is impossible to be together or a combination of two. That let's say for example, running a car on the top of it, there is a horse running with a man riding. So that is an impossible idea to put you an idea of the surrealistic techniques. But in this occasion, we have taken object from the usual environment and to placing it to an unfamiliar one. So, compare nyo dun sa juxtaposition natin, no? Medyo salungat silang dalawa. So, dito naman, usual, then placing it to an unfamiliar or unusual way. So, like what they have, you have the face wrap by a piece of cloth, eh, syempre, di ka makakahinga noon, hindi ka makakakita, matatakpan ng mukha mo. You have an electric burner inside the car. Anong gagawin mo sa electric burner inside the car? Are you going to cook something? No, that's an impossible idea to be put no inside your car. And you will be realized, anong ginagawa nito dito? And number 5 is transparency. You will probably look on the object is transparent that are not transparent. Like what do we have right now in science? They are now showing from the different parts of the internal organs of the body ng isang individual or human beings. Next is transformation. This is changing an object to unusual way. Kaya nga transformation eh. Well, like what do we have right now yung mga art natin? Yung mga workings natin. That's a transformation right now. Ginagawa na siyang mga bagong art ngayon. Ginagawa na siyang bagong use. Nare-recycle na siya. At yung nilalagyan ng yellow na binabaliktad, pwede na natin siyang gamitin. It was being transferred to another usual object, no, or the unusual way. That it cannot be an example of our reality. Next is impressionism. The last one is impressionism, wherein you're directly describing the visual sensation derived from nature and what you are you impress, no, you impressionism man or impressionist, no, picture of something. So how you look, no, the picture of movements and how you try to create, no, in your mind, and how is it being happen in the looks of describing the entire scenario of the picture that you're trying to make, no, in your canvas or in your painting. So these are referred now as optical realism one. So these are could be no, an what have you perceived of how you look no people around you or surround you, and many as you viewing and experience an idea, no, and aspect of a using of an art forms. So that will be the end of our discussion. But this is an example of an impressionism style of an art. So I'll be now stop sharing, going to our Google Meet, right? So going back, ayan. You can now ask, no, add, and clarify something if you want to. Beginning now, anybody can volunteer. Oh, bakit nagli-leave na ng meeting yung iba? Are you afraid to ask a question or are you afraid to ask a question? Go ahead, kung sino gusto magtanong. You are free, walang mali na may tatanong, iko-correct natin yan. Constructive criticism tayo. Okay, walang magtatanong. Sige, patalastas muna ako. For the next week, during synchronous meeting, we will be having our first preliminary examination. Make yourself ready and